Good day, viewers. Welcome to a new edition of 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television with me, Manir Dan Ali. Our guest today has been here before. He is the former Managing Director, Chief Executive of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, better known as TCN, and he has a PhD in accounting, and I'm talking about Dr. Usman Mohammed. Dr. Usman, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Manir. I'm grateful to see you.
Thank you, and it's always good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
And I saw that just a few days ago, you were the convocation lecturer at the Nile University here in Abuja, where I assume you must have touched on things to do with the very difficult power situation in Nigeria. As you know better than me, just this year there have been too many great collapses for our comfort. I don't know what is responsible for that kind of situation.
Thank you very much, Manir. Yes, at Nile University, the lecture was on sustainable energy solution, a pathway for industrial development on Nigeria. So we actually talked about
how to get power.
We talked about the power sector, because energy includes petroleum, include gas, include even firewood, include electricity.
Yeah, you are realistic when you include firewood.
Yes, but we couldn't talk about everything. We have to restrict ourselves to the power sector and the gas, because 70% of gas supply in Nigeria and domestic gas consumption, between 70 and 80% of domestic gas consumption is the power sector that consumes. So definitely gas becomes central to the electricity. So we restricted ourselves to gas and electricity, and it was successfully delivered.
Did you explain the power grid collapse?
Of course. I actually want to talk to you about the collapses. The grid collapse actually is, I'm not surprised that our grid are collapsing. That is the truth.
Why?
Because all the necessary ingredients for us to have system stability or to have grid not collapsing is not there. Let me tell you, Manir, I was the MDTCN, which you know, which I worked with you closely that time. Every grid that you see, you need to have frequency under control. And we work very hard to ensure that all generators that are connected to the grid were on free governor, were put on free governor.
What does that mean?
Free governor means is some facilities they will put inside the generators that will make the generators to contract supply or to expand supply all over the country, to contract or expand supply depending on the demand by the discos. If discos take plenty power, they will now increase their generation. Yes. And then if discos reduce power, they will reduce their power. Before our intervention, all the grid, there was no free governor control.
So are you saying that without that control, it tends to get the power to trip and shut down the grid?
No, the free governor control is to make sure that the frequency are stable. Around 50 hertz is stable. So if there is a reduction in demand, then the generator will automatically reduce their demand. The frequency that we are talking about is actually balancing supply and demand. At any point in time, supply and demand must balance. If the supply and demand is not balanced, that is what you have, system instability that will lead to what we call system collapse. That is the truth. Now, what we did is that we worked very hard to get the frequency under control. Now, after that, that is what we call primary reserve. Primary reserve, that is the frequency control.
Right.
Then there is supposed to be secondary reserve, which is spinning reserve. Now, the spinning reserve is to take care of instability that is not anticipated. For example, if there is a generator that is generating, let's say 500 megawatt, and for any reason it developed fault and it went out, the spinning reserve is supposed to come up to fill in the gap of that generator, so that the demand and supply are always equal.
But what you are saying in layman's term is like we are not paying attention to the critical issue in the
yes, no,
power?
I will tell you what happened. So when we came in, we procured the spinning reserve. We are able to procure spinning reserve. The spinning reserve for a generation that's average 4,000 megawatt is supposed to be 10%, which means it's supposed to be at least 400 megawatt. But we are able to procure 260 megawatt because it's not every generator that can provide that kind of facility. So we sent to NAC, and NAC said no.
Yeah, the electricity regulator.
They said we have to come back and do competitive procurement. We advertise and we procure competitively, and we send to NAC till date. That spinning reserve has not been deployed.
But how will you know till date? Because you haven't been MD for years now.
There's no way that this information will happen in the sector and I will not know. If the spinning reserve have been deployed, I will know. There's no, I will not know.
But that is not the excuse or the explanation that we are being given.
I have not finished. So this is one problem that we have. The second problem we have with our network is that we have the network is not robust. So if the transmission line goes out, for example, it will be very difficult for, it means a significant supply will have gone out. Now, when that significant supply goes out, there should be a way where that supply can be rerouted. And that is why all over the world, the minimum requirement for network is supposed to be N-1.
What does that mean? Again, in layman terms.
If every line goes out, it should not affect the supply. So in N-1 in terms of line can mean you build two parallel lines, but it can also mean you build in loop. So if there's a problem in one particular location, it can be backfeeded instead of standing alone. So this is the problem. So if you look at some power plant like Ikoto Bene, like Calabar power plant, like Opai power plant, they are on a line that goes to a particular place. It's not on loop. So if there is a problem between Onitsha and Opai, for example, the whole generation on Opai will be out. And when the generation is out, it means you're causing system instability. So, and that was the reason why we worked to put N-1 in terms of line and in terms of substation.
But you haven't succeeded in doing that nationally.
Unfortunately, before we finish, they blow the whistle. So
yes, but the system is supposed to continue even long after we are dead.
When we came in, you remember, we build capacity for people who will manage project because it's very critical. We build capacity for people who are going to manage project. And what we did was that we advertised internally and staff applied and we interviewed them. Some even wrote exam and we select those that we believe are competent and we train them. And they are the one who designed all those projects under which we raised $1.661 billion. They did it by themselves. This is unheard of in Nigeria. In Nigeria, most of the time, the donors give you consultant, and then the consultant will design the project for you, and then this time, these guys are the one that did the design by themselves.
So what happened to this?
Unfortunately, immediately I left, they became the first target. They are the people that were removed. All of them were sacked.
But this tends to happen every time there's a new administration.
This is the problem. And for information, Manir, these guys, I don't even know them. I have worked in the sector, but I didn't even know some of them because Nigeria is a big country, and the transmission also has staff all over the place. So does not mean that because you work in a place, you know them. These are the best cream in that area. And they are trained. They are not only trained here, they are trained abroad, they are trained everywhere. And they are the one, it's not the donors that design our project. They are the one that design the project. They are the one that were doing the environmental impact. Everything, they are the one that did it. Immediately, I was removed, they became the first target. So those people who are put to take over, they don't even understand the concept and everything. Let me give you an example.
But after doing it for a while, you must grant it to them that they will learn.
Let me give you one example now. The project manager for the World Bank, African Development Bank project was removed. And the African Development Bank project was approved $410 million on a programmatic approach. And now what is programmatic approach? When we went to get the loan approved, it became very difficult to approve it at $410 million because Nigeria, we have hit our headroom. So we have to leave part of it to be approved in 2 or 3 years. after. To be implemented in 2 years. So the loan was approved that we will implement the 210 million. Then the 200 million will come after we have done the tender and we have finished this. So when the project manager was removed, the people that came in, they didn't even understand there is a programmatic. Nobody is even talking about the second part, which was supposed to put transmission lines and substation in the northeast, particularly places like Manguno, Marte, Dikwa, Bama, Goza, Jada, Ganye, Buniadi, Kwayapusar, Uba. These are places that are far from the nearest generation stations, and the voltage is low. So they are being supplied on 11 kV and 33 kV. The quality of power is very low. And that explains why you have all these restrictions, because there's no economic activity, because there's no electricity. But nobody is talking about it.
A lot of Nigerians seem to think that the centralization of the grid is the problem. That is why there are even people who are saying maybe you should have it according to the geopolitical zones.
Manir, because of the problem of electricity that we have, electricity is central to our development and is central to everything. That is why if you look at even the SDG number 9 is electricity only. Is electricity, while SDG number 7 also is industries, agriculture, and innovation, all are lumped under one SDG. Why? Because electricity is the enabler of every development. And that's why it alone, clean energy, was made number 9. So that is understandable that we have significant level of emergency experts in the power sector who are talking whatever they want to talk.
So
because of
it wouldn't work.
Let me explain to you.
Let me explain to you.
The entire grid as we have now, we are talking about six geographical zones that we have in Nigeria. Only 2 zones are self-sufficient in terms of generation. What do I mean? Only 2 zones are generating more than what they are consuming as of today. And those 2 zones are the North Central and South-South. And even these 2 zones, they don't have adequate transmission line if you decide to cut it. Let me give you an example. Southwest now, they get their power supply from a single circuit line that ran from Omotosho to Benin TS. We attempted to build another line from Benin North to Oshobo. That has not been completed, even when I left, and until today it has not been completed.
While Rome is burning and you, the emperors, are fiddling, Nigerians are moving away to their own, setting up their own grid, setting up their own solar panels, depending on their economic strength. Some are spending millions, some are spending less than that and generating their own power. Isn't that a threat to what we know of TCN, discourse, and all of that?
No, actually, if you go abroad, even to America, you can actually set up solar panel in your house and generate, and their meter can import and export. So it can export to the grid and it can import to the grid. So there will be balancing in such a way that if you consume more than what you
generate more than what you consume.
If you generate more than what you consume, you are actually paid. So this one is all over the world. But one thing that we have to understand, Manir, is that the solution that we are providing through rural electrification to the villages all over the country under donor-funded and public-funded line are not sustainable solution that we're taking using the solar homes. It's not a sustainable solution.
I would like us to go into details of that after a short break now. Viewers, it is 30 minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is the former Chief Executive Officer of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, Dr. Usman Guru Mohammed. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it is 30 minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is Dr. Usman Guru Mohammed, the former Chief Executive Officer of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. Before we went on break, you are trying to explain that the solar transition that we are seeing now, people who are busy setting up the alternative because they have no confidence in NEPA or TCN or discourse. And that it's not strange that even in the developed countries, people are doing that, and even selling power to
yes, people sell power to the grid. But before you do that, Manir, you have to stabilize the grid and provide all the necessary investment that is required to make the grid stable. You need to have SCADA. You need to have everything that
What's
is
SCADA?
SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisition system.
That's another long grammar for some
It's just like
equipment.
It's just like a register of event that will show all the players that are connected to the grid, how they are behaving. For example, I told you, if a grid, a generator went out, the system needs to come in to replace it. That is the spinning reserve. But a generator is not supposed to go out now. So when it goes out, that generator is actually supposed to be punished according to the grid code. But it is the SCADA that will show that this is the person that goes out. So so we need to have a system. And then I want to tell you, Manir, the solution we are providing through to the rural areas that I'm saying is not sustainable.
Why?
What we need to do is to provide solar grid connected. We are supposed to connect the grid to the solar. Connect the solar to the grid. And for us to connect the grid to the solar, we need to have the grid sustainable. And how can the grid become sustainable? We need to build lines to be N-1. We need to fix these deficiencies in the DISCO connection interface between DISCO and transmission, which is causing a lot of instability. We need to fix it. And that is why I always say, why do we as a nation craft our climate change policy the same as people who have developed? If you go, our climate change policy is like the people who are developed, increase the quantity of renewable, increase. We are supposed to carry out study, for example, to show how many generators, all these scattered generators that are inside the country, how many emissions are those generators emitting? So if we include it as part of climate policy, it means that when we are fixing the DISCO, we are fixing the transmission, we are actually removing those emissions from being emitted from providing solution.
But secondly, the big elephant in the room is finance. Because all of this will cost money, and we can see government is busy borrowing to even run day-to-day affairs. So how can Nigeria get the necessary finances to be able to do this transition?
The power sector can self-sustain itself.
How?
Given
we have
the
discourse have been sold, and they are still being supported with government money.
Yes, they have been sold to who? The reason is that we know, I've told you even last time in the discussion we had, we sold our discourse to people who have no capacity. They cannot even raise long-term finance. And that is the reason why government, after privatizing, what's the purpose of the privatization? The objective of the privatization is to bring sustainable investment into the sector. Government have no money to invest in the power sector. And it wants private sector to take over. So like Govt has built a refinery. We are supposed to have people who have the capacity to fix the network of distribution network, expand the capacity of distribution network, stabilize the distribution network. Government is supposed to put investment in transmission, stabilize transmission, put N-1 across the country, build new line where you can have different scenarios, as I told you. That's what is supposed to take place. Transmission will raise $1.61 billion in 1 year. That was not the end. The phase 2 of transmission was supposed to attract about $2.5 billion. We are on the first phase, which was the Eastern Backbone, which we are supposed to raise $800 million to do it. Manir, I want to tell you that transmission and distribution are economic business that can be run successfully as business. When we came to transmission, remember in 3 years, we were able to do about 300% salary increase to TCN staff. Do you know that when I came, they cannot even pay salary, they have to go to next month. At the same time, we saved about $300 million, which we are supposed to do closing the Lagos loop and also doing the Eastern Backbone. It was on the basis of that money they blow the whistle, and the money has been squandered. So what am I trying to tell you? What I'm trying to tell you is that transmission can finance itself. The same thing distribution can finance itself.
But why is it impossible to do?
But the finance is not the finance that we get from Nigerian Commercial Bank. The mistake we did, Manir, when we did the roadshow for the privatization, we were told by people who have capacity, who have been doing this kind of business, that we need to carry out the aggregate technical commercial law scientifically, and we didn't do that. And that is how we end up selling because we know nobody is going to come. So we lower the qualification criteria. That was how Mohammed and co, all of them bought distribution companies. And we don't have capacity to bring long-term finance. If you borrow from a commercial bank that these people borrow to pay for those assets, if you borrow from commercial bank and you build a house and you said you are going to pay from the rent that you are collecting will be the one you are going to use it to pay for the loan. Don't you know that any commercial bank that you borrow the money from, they will take over the house from you? Because they cannot give more than 7 years, 10 years a loan. This business requires more than 20 years or 20 years loan.
So you have to take it from abroad.
Yes.
Which also will add to the backlog, the load of loan on the country.
No. These are private sector. Govt has taken $20 billion loan now. And he built his refinery. Is that a loan on Nigeria? No, it's not a loan on Nigeria. Look.
But if it is taken by, say, TCN?
No, if it's taken by TCN will pay. That's what I was telling you. Even in 3 years, I've taken the loan of $1.61 billion, and in 3 years, I saved $500 million. So, does that not tell you that this business is a sustainable business? And this loan has 3 years monitoring period, 5 years monitoring period, and its repayment period is 20 years, and the loan interest rate is about 1 or 2%. So, don't you know that this loan can be repaid? And as I will speak with you now, still, donors are the easiest way we can raise money to build our transmission network. But the problem is that we have to train our staff for them to be able to create the project. It's not lack of finance, it's lack of project. Even distribution network, we can fix it. And that was why when we are in government, we suggest to government that, look, government has made mistake in handing over distribution company to companies that are not competent. It's a mistake of government. Government went ahead and allowed BPE to be on the board of those companies. So government is part of actually the problem inside the distribution network. So we wrote to government and said, look, government should provide their 40% of long-term finance. So instead of all this money we are borrowing, we are putting inside the MBET, we are borrowing, putting inside REA. Even REA, we cannot...
the Rural Electrification Authority.
Why don't we take this money and put our 40% inside this disco and ask the owners of the disco to bring their own 60%. Anybody who does not have that money should sell and give it to people who have the capacity to take over.
But while you are talking about the inefficiency of these distribution companies, consumers are concerned about the prohibitive cost of electricity, because I'm sure you are aware of this Band A Palaba, where people now can't afford to switch on their ACs. Many big people now have to rely on fan and rechargeable fan, and sometimes they even switch off NEPA for a certain period of the day.
Manir, you remember when we talked last time, this issue came up. I think the Band A was new, and I told you it's going to fail. I said it's going to fail, just like the service reflective tariff failed. It's going to fail.
Fail in what way?
It will not succeed.
But those charges have been
it's not succeed.
made against
Let me tell you. If you look at the explanation by NAC for creating this Band A, Band B, was that they are going to reduce government's exposure to the power sector. So if people are paying, some are paying 300% now of what they used to pay before, that means they are going to raise enough money to reduce the exposure of the power sector exposure of the power sector, meaning the subsidy that the government is paying will reduce. But just this week now, NAC has published to say that in 11 months, that is from January to November, what the government is going to pay as subsidy is 1.9 trillion.
So there's still...
So what does that mean now? What that tells you is that the Band A, Band B has failed.
But is it not like the fuel subsidy, whereby also in spite of the higher cost, we found that there are bigger subsidies that were paid under Buhari and even under Tinubu?
Of course. See, what we needed in the power sector, and that is the whole essence of the power sector reform, is to attract sustainable investment and bring competence. People who know how to run this business better than the way we are running should come. But we decided to sell this company in a way that created mostly all the people that bought are Nigerian companies that have no capacity. They have never run this business before. They don't have capacity to raise the long-term finance. And that is the reason why we are here, we are where we are. The network has continued to stay at between 4,000 and 5,000 megawatt. Yet government is sinking money through MBED paying subsidy. And this subsidy is not translating to any megawatt. So the whole essence of MITO, multi-year tariff that was created by BPA, has failed. So we have to look at better solution. As of today, I know that there are significant interest. I'm a finance person. I worked in African development for many years. There are significant interest in even the distribution network in Nigeria.
So what, in summary, can you just summarize what is the way out of this big conundrum of higher tariff, very poor service, and loss of grid collapses?
Thank you very much. First of all, government have to appoint competent people in charge of the MDS, all the MDS, people who are supposed to do policy, people who are supposed to do regulation, and people who are supposed to manage some of the MDS in the sector must be competent people who are transparent and are capable of doing the job. That is number one. Number two, government have to come up with a policy that will incentivize investment into the sector. What do I mean? We need to come with a deliberate policy that will force investment into the distribution network. See, the distribution network is a cash cow, and the cash cow is supposed to be measured based on efficiency. We did so many things that are wrong, including assuming the aggregate technical commercial loss inside the cash cow is 25%. Eventually, when we distributed the company to ourselves, we told them, go and find out the true loss. And the true loss came up to 50 and 60. In reality, this is a game. It's a fraud. It's not something that somebody will do. So we need to find a way of solving that problem.
Then what else?
Then what we also need to do is that we need to come up with a policy on right-of-way. How do we come up with a policy on right-of-way? This idea that we have to spend several years doing the aggregate, doing the right-of-way acquisition is the most difficult part in West Africa. Nigeria has the difficult aspect of acquisition of right-of-way. So even donors, some of them, they create a lot of problem for us. But shortly, I want to tell you that there's a donor that agreed to work with us in a way that would make this sustainable. Surprisingly, French Development Agency happened to be the best donor that I worked with them when I was MD of TCN. And for your information, is the first donor that committed to build a transmission line in Nigeria. All these other donors, including the African Development that I came from, had not committed to build a transmission line until AFD coming. So we need to work with our governors to provide the right of way instead of all this policy that we are doing that is not working. And it has worked. When we work with Ugwai, the governor of Tinubu, we were able to provide a 132 kV line from New Haven to Nsukka within a short period of time. The same thing, we collaborated with El-Rufai to solve the problem of the Jos Kaduna double circuit line.
So it can be done.
Then thirdly, sir,
yes.
Thirdly, we also need to
finally,
train our staff.
Run out of time.
We need to train our staff to be the leader, to be the one that will design all those projects. And then we need to empower them to deliver. That's what we need to do as a country.
Thank you very much. That is a very good point to end this edition of 30 Minutes. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
The program.
I'm very grateful.
Viewers, that's the end of this edition of 30 Minutes. Keep a date with us.